Welcome to Weekends with Whitney. We come to you from Louisiana's only inhabited barrier island, Grand Isle. See why locals and visitors alike have come and treasured this place for the last 250 years. Plus, Dr. Nick explores why anxiety can seem to pop up out of nowhere. And more importantly, helps us determine where it's coming from.
That it's a jump a little bit ahead by saying, okay, how can we get rid of it? We need to explore sometimes where it might be coming from, where it might be rooted. And it's usually rooted in core belief systems. Okay. Core belief systems meaning I'm not good enough, I'm always looking for approval.
But first, Grand Isle has an impressive history, but it's facing an uncertain future with climate change. We head to the coast to take a look at this coastal jewel. These ocean waters govern Grand Isle's prosperity, adversity,
Betsy's bringing in danger from a totally unexpected quarter. Her winds are pushing a 16-foot wall of water out of Lake Bourne in the Gulf.
and history. Its oldest native resident, Ambrose Besson, says growing up here was tough.
We suffered a lot because we didn't have no money and you had to live off the land. It was hard.
Fortunately, the island was fruitful.
My dad, they were all fishermen and fur trapping. They trapped furs, you know, mink, muskrat. They trapped that and sell the furs for a living.
Yeah.
All you could do on Grand Isle was farm. The main crop was cucumbers. We used to have the first cucumbers to bring to the French market. And they would sell good. I was a little kid. I used to go work in the cucumber field, and I had the stamp. You put them in a bushel basket. I don't see those. They start small and they get big up. And that's how you pack those cucumbers in there. And I had to stamp the name of the man that was going to sell them at the French market, John Mars. If I'd live 1,000 years, I'll never forget that name, but I had to stamp it on everything all day long. We had the first cucumbers in the French market. Got the best price for them. Vegetables grow good on this island.
Yeah.
Oh, tomatoes, watermelons, anything.
His niece, Leota Besson Bladsacker, says her dad got it to New Orleans to sell.
My dad used to drive the fruit truck once or twice a week to New Orleans and go ahead and deliver the fruits and vegetables. And he used to tell me, he said when he'd get there, you could see people peeking out from Canal Street waiting for him to come. And when he would get there, they would all go to that one place where he stopped. He said in no time that truck was empty. Wow. They grew beautiful vegetables here, cucumbers they'd harvest anywhere from 50,000 pounds plus of cucumbers shipped to New York.
In the 1940s, Grand Isle was the cucumber capital of the world, growing 25% of the U.S. crop. World-renowned photographer Fonville captured the spirit, beauty, and soul of those here in the 30s. This oysterman sitting on a sack of shells is one of Fonville's most famous. So is this one, his Grand Isle bus. He moved from Texas to the island after reading Lafitte the Pirate. This little island has a big history. French pirate Jean Lafitte and his 1,200 men lived on neighboring island Grande Terre for a decade in the early 1800s. Vera Chickazola's relative was one of them.
The first Chickazola, Louis Necoupe Chickazola, was a chicken thief, really, who heard about Lafitte starting his gang, a new gang. He wanted to be his own boss. So he started on the next island on Grand Terre, and he had sort of like a poster. Anybody want to join? Come on. Oh. So he had a motley crew. I mean, every nationality you could think of, every kind of person was there. Louis Chicazola was his strongbox captain.
Now, what's a strongbox captain?
Well, had to guard the gold and stuff like that.
Leota's a descendant too. This gold thimble is a family heirloom her brother treasures.
That thimble's, he guards it with his life, that's for sure.
It's a gift from Jean Lafitte.
A Chicazola woman used to clean up Jean Lafitte's house and stuff. And so one day after they were counting out the coins, the gold coins, he had one left over. So he got the blacksmith to make a thimble because she sewed all the time.
The U.S. military exiled, then embraced Jean Lafitte, according to Jean Landry.
He considered himself a patriot of the United States. Thus, when Andrew Jackson sent his troops here to destroy Lafitte's stronghold on Grand Terre, in spite of that, Lafitte and his Baratarians, which were the people that were living over there that worked with him, they took their stores of flints and gunpowder to Chalmette to fight the Battle of New Orleans. A lot of the people, my grandchildren included, can look back on those years and say that their 5 back great-grandfathers sailed with Lafitte.
Wow.
Yes. So that's a rich history that we have here.
Let's go crazy.
I'm gonna bring y'all to the old general store.
We're going to the old general store. The now dilapidated general store was once a thriving part of this community.
This part right here was where you would go for the mail. So they'd have to wait for the mail to be brought in by boat. That's where they'd wait. Everybody's waiting to get their mail.
A mail call, almost like the military, right?
Pretty much.
The Oleander Hotel has been shuttered decades too.
And I wish they would do something with it, but they won't. They've been offered to people to buy that place and they won't let go of it.
But the old Coast Guard station is faring much better. It's now Town Hall. Leota hopes one day it could be converted into a museum, or maybe the old Coast Guard boathouse, now the city's repair shop. It's a 100-year-old gem.
These are the original floors that were in here, and it must be, I don't know if it's cypress or not, but whatever it is, it's hung on because there's been a lot of traffic in here.
It's here city officials who didn't evacuate rode out major hurricanes.
When Betsy came, the brunt of the storm, he said that building was doing this. He said when he looked outside, he could see the cars and all that coming down the street.
Only about 5 homes on the island are 100 years or older. Major hurricanes throughout the last century destroyed the others. This is one that made it.
You see that old cistern? That's original to the house. It was built in 1888.
The cistern's washed away several times, but they've managed to find it in the storm's aftermath. Trent and Lana Downing's home is another survivor.
We just dreamed of having a place on Grand Isle. So we found this place in the trees.
It's the trees that have shielded it from destruction. That's why the islanders have always built homes in the trees and not along the beach.
If you look back through history and you go along the coast of Louisiana and you see the communities that once thrived and had these huge oak and hackberry forests that were so important to holding the land together, and they cut their trees down. And when a hurricane came through, it just washed right over them. In 1893, a huge storm hit this area. Grand Isle did not suffer near the loss of life and homes as did our neighboring community, Chenier Caminada, right across the bridge, because they had no trees, and we still had our forest.
In fact, cutting down trees has long been against the law on Grand Isle. It cuts down on the cost of home insurance too, although home prices keep skyrocketing.
Sometimes that worries me because now someone from Grand Isle cannot afford to build here, like my son for one.
So she keeps a keen eye on the market.
When an old house goes up for sale, I ride around constantly to see that. And I have friends looking for a fixer-upper, and I know they're going to take care of it. So I do that. But before I do that, I try to pass it to somebody on the island.
She found her own fixer-upper last year. The house is proving to live up to its name, Perseverance.
These are the original floors to the camp since 1942.
Here, there's always a cool island breeze, even on an 80-degree day.
Look at that. I mean, look, I've got goosebumps, it's so cold.
She might even turn this into a B&B.
I love this old place, I do. Oh yeah, one day I'm gonna finish.
In Hurricane Betsy, Vera's home survived, but barely.
We finally got to come back home, and our house floated away about 50, 75 feet away. So we brought it back, picked it up, still there.
Making it livable took everyone.
I remember the first week or so, we were shoveling a foot and a half of marsh mud out of our houses. You know, all the windows, we'd open all the windows and just shovel out of the house. It was horrible. But as a kid, it was fun. We took records that got warped and we threw them like they were skeet and we'd shoot with our BB guns. I mean, we just made fun with everything, you know, so it was a blast.
Cleaning wasn't a blast for Lana after Katrina, but it did give her added admiration for the islanders.
It flooded and had water and mud, and we came to clean it out, and there was no power, there was no air conditioning, there was no water, there was nothing. And I thought, how did the people do it? Because it hasn't been that many years that electricity came to Grand Isle. And I thought, how in the world did they live? And how did they survive? And they thrived. And I thought they must have really been some tough people.
To learn more, Lana went on historic tours, led by Vera and Leota.
Their stories of being children on Grand Isle really were an inspiration to me. That they didn't have anything and they didn't expect anything, and they had big families and they were happy and they made do with what they had. And it took tough people and positive people.
Lana recently published this work of fiction, Tea Garçon of Grand Isle, inspired by those stories and her husband.
Trent would say every time we came, I wish I had been a boy on Grand Isle. I would love to have grown up on Grand Isle. And I got to thinking, what could I write about a little boy on Grand Isle?
Being a boy or girl on the island had one definite drawback, dating.
I can remember when we went to prom, we didn't have dates because everybody was related to you. So unless it was in the summertime when we had tourists.
It made Coast Guardsmen the catch of the day.
That's who everybody married, or Coast Guard, you know, people, or people who came here to trawl. But that's exactly what it was. You had to wait for somebody to come.
When someone did get married, dozens shared their anniversary date.
Very difficult to get religion here. Every once in a while, priests would come and everybody was going to be baptized on the same day. Everybody was married on the same day. You might have 20 or 30 marriages, you know, all in the same day.
They built their first church here in 1919, but it was decades later when they got a full-time priest. Grand Isle families were grand in size.
My aunt had 16 kids. Her sister-in-law had 18.
That's crazy.
We had 8. Some people had 10.
Every bunch had their colorful characters.
How you like Aunt Mariah? We have some rebels in our family.
Oh, Aunt Mariah.
Yeah,
That's funny.
She lived in New Orleans. She had about 4 or 5 husbands.
Check out her Uncle George, who they said was drunk for 3 years and ran a whorehouse in Abbeville. Grand Islanders are survivors. They've endured a difficult past, but now face an even more uncertain future.
It was 7.5 miles of sin and sand and sun, and now it's 7 miles. So we need help. Please, somebody give me a beach.
I was going to say, does that terrify you, global warming and coastal erosion? I mean, you're getting the double whammy, it feels like.
Exactly. The thing that bothers me is if someone asks me eventually, well, where are you from? And I won't have a place to tell them where I'm from because there won't be anything left.
For the Grand Isle natives, this place is home, and it will always be home, and no matter what happens, they will come back to Grand Isle until it washes away completely.
We noticed the big change, but I love it here. I would never live anywhere else. Never. I was born here, I'm gonna die here.
So if you're planning your summer vacations, you might want to add Grand Isle to your list of options. And still ahead, Dr. Nick explains why anxiety can just pop up out of nowhere and the best time to deal with it as Weekends with Whitney continues.
Break out of the chaos.
Do you ever have those moments in a day where you just get really anxious and you can't even pinpoint what you're anxious about or why or where the heck this is coming from? Dr. Nick helps us unravel the mystery. Good to see you.
Oh, yes, but it is a mystery.
Yes.
Anxiety is, you know, I treat a lot of people with anxiety, and of course most of them are also depressed. They kind of go
They go hand in hand, darn it.
But we talk a lot about, you know, what can we do for anxiety?
Be a risk taker.
Risk taker.
Yeah, don't be averse to adventure.
Don't avoid things because that's going to make you more anxious. And if you're a student and you've got homework and you're trying to put it off a week, it's just going to make you more anxious.
Right.
But I do believe that it's a jump a little bit ahead by saying, okay, how can we get rid of it? We need to explore sometimes where it might be coming from, where it might be rooted. And it's usually rooted in core belief systems. Okay. Core belief systems meaning I'm not good enough, I'm always looking for approval, I'm saying I'm sorry. And remember, all this usually leads us back to childhood.
Okay, so we don't look at like what happened yesterday that made me anxious today. It's like we really probably have to be real honest and go back.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that's not necessarily that we're digging up all these painful memories and then making it work. We've got to do something with those anxious memories, right?
Right, or they're just going to keep resurfacing.
Or they're going to keep resurfacing and get worse, and I haven't done my job. which is to help them overcome some of that. But it's important to note that, let's say somebody was yelled at all the time growing up. One had a sister or a brother who excelled in everything, and she didn't. And what about somebody who's always saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry? And then I'm listening to today, and there's those, I'm looking for approval, I'm sorry, I'm not good enough. When am I going to be loved by God? Especially when, and this has been something that I've been fascinated by, Whitney. I have met so many people who I thought had the perfect childhood. And you know what, one of the things that stands out?
Tell me.
They will say to me, I just didn't fit in. And I'm like, what do you mean you didn't fit in? I just didn't feel like I fit in. And it made me realize that fitting in is not necessarily being pretty or
popular.
Accepted or popular. I mean, it may, but everybody in childhood and middle school has self-consciousness.
Right. Now, do you mean not fitting into their own family, or not fitting into the world, or their friends? All of the above, huh?
It could be any or all of the above.
Okay.
It could be any, because remember, nobody's childhood or middle school experience is usually that great.
Right. Right. We all have had awkward moments.
Well, and then think about all the people that maybe had to go through divorce when they were 10 or 11 years old.
Right.
What about the people that at 15 want to go out, or 16, they want to go out with their friends, but their divorced father, she sees his pain.
And it's his weekend with her.
And it's his weekend with her. And so it creates this. Do you see where
I do.
It just can come from so many places.
But
then we can start saying, okay, I don't have to stay there.
Okay. Yes. I was just going to reiterate. I think it's great when somebody has somebody like you to facilitate that and ask the right questions. I think it's very difficult when you have to do it yourself.
Very difficult. Very difficult.
So,
and I'm not pushing my wares or the counselor's wares, but it is. And it's not something, I had one that came in this evening several weeks ago, and she said, you know, I've got the greatest parents in the world, and they're always saying, well, why don't you talk to us? And she says, I don't want to talk to you about these things, because what she wanted to say, what she said to me, is they're part of the problem.
Right.
But she doesn't want to tell them that.
No.
She doesn't want to say, you're the causing my anxiety.
It does no good, right? Nothing good will come of that. They're in their 70s. It's not going to change
or 30s.
Oh.
You know, no, I'm talking about somebody's in an adolescent and parents will talk to us. Well, I don't want to talk to you.
I see.
And that's where friendships can be very, very, very powerful.
Sure.
They can be very powerful.
So I'm sorry, I totally interrupted
no.
But you were saying that once they realize it, sorry, I digressed on
it's okay.
realizing it and how important that is. Once they realize it, what do they do with it?
That's when we have to start talking about, okay, we're going to change that script. We got to live by those rules. Can we catch when we feel like, for instance, gosh, I'm yelling at myself. I know that takes work. But we are capable of I'm fussing at myself, I'm whipping myself, I'm talking down at myself. That's creating my anxiety. It's old stuff, but I've internalized it, huh?
Right.
And I need to change the script. I have an affirmation list. I'm gonna bring it. We're gonna talk through it one of these days.
Oh, good.
It's just an affirmation list of about 30 or 40 things. I love to give it to somebody who's got a lot of anxiety. I said, just go through it and pick the top 5. And they said, oh, I'm not into all this affirmation stuff. And I'm like, just pick the top 5. And let's just say, for instance, one of them that usually is always picked. I can change the rules that I used to live by. Now, is that psychobabble?
No.
Is that just fake affirmation?
No. It's real.
I can change. I can follow my belief systems. I can walk in my lane and not worry about somebody else's lane. I am capable of making good judgments. Do you hear how that just kind of like
lifted me?
Wow, I can do this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not 10 anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not 12 anymore. I've been stuck with these tapes. I've got the capacity in my brain to change the wiring. I really believe it.
I really believe it
Take it out,
yes.
It's work. And you know when it's most important though to do the work?
Tell me.
Just when you're not anxious.
Oh. good point. Okay.
When you are stable and everything's going well, that's when you throw in these affirmations. Because then you're preparing yourself for the panic attack that may not come as strong or powerful, because I've got a defense system that says, not getting to me today.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. It's like, this is my anti-kryptonite.
But people want to call, no, I've just had an anxious day. I'm like, can we get together when you're not anxious? And then we can maybe do some
work. Oh, good. I love that.
Doesn't it make sense?
Absolutely.
Would you really want to sit down and talk to Sydney Joy about something she did that was unacceptable in that moment? Be honest, Whitney. Don't you think it's like we got to de-escalate?
Oh, I was going to say
we got to calm down. Let's deal with this
if
later.
If you're mad, you want to, but if you're smart, you go, we're going to talk about this tomorrow.
Right. And then hopefully later you'll be thinking about how might I handle that the next time it happens.
I know.
One last thing.
Yes.
A little anxiety is good. Just always have to make sure.
Oh, really?
That.
A little?
Yes, a little anxiety is always good.
It can be a motivator, is that right?
Yeah. Think of speaking or getting ready to give a presentation or
a deadline.
A deadline.
Get you going.
Meeting new people, going in for a job interview.
Okay.
Thinking about wanting to take another job, as we've discussed, I think.
Yeah.
But a little anxiety is good.
Okay. But a lot of anxiety, we got to work it out. More Weekends with Whitney after this. Atlas Foundation Repair, fixing your foundation problems for more than 30 years while preserving and protecting your trees.
Out of the routine.
Thanks for sharing your time with us here on Weekends with Whitney. We hope to see you back here again next week. But until then, we leave you with more beauty that is Grand Isle.